Hey, this is Monday, January 25th, and we're going to get into more Greek mythology and stories, but we're going to do a wee bit of a review from last week because there is a chance, a small chance, some kids did not write anything down from last week because while they were home, they were what scientists call lazy and easily distracted. And so we're going to try and go back over that information. Friday's e-learning, the one coming up this week, we're going to talk about in a second with the next screen, and it's going to cover the information you're writing down on these papers. So having that stuff written down makes your life much easier. Do the hall passes we did, and we're good. From last Friday's e-learning, the biggest issue was twofold. Number two, when people find things to complain about, their biggest complaint across the board was having to memorize everything in the charts. My good news is you are not memorizing everything in that chart. That would be awful and horrible, and I don't hate you nearly enough. You are going to need to know the chart, but basically just because of the e-learning on Friday, because you're going to make sure you know what category things go into, because Friday you're going to have a quiz. That is what e-learning is for this Friday. Last week was the 2 questions. This week is going to be a quiz. Hi, Eli. I don't know. I didn't see anything, but you're welcome to look down there. We are good. But anyway, so yeah, I don't think I saw anything in here. I have an old nasty pencil if you want it over on my desk. If you just want to grab one, it's on the right-hand side next to the fuzzy thing. There's like a little bucket of pencils, and you're welcome to grab one of those. We'll just do an exchange and be nice to you. There you go. So last Friday, again, it was the whole making the connection with the warriors from there. And this Friday, you're going to have like an 8-question quiz about the stuff we're talking about in class. The other thing from last week was your e-learning had to actually come from our discussions in class. I had a bunch of kids who just did not pay attention to class and then they tried to write down random things and you got no points for it. So it was all, the whole point of last week's e-learning was, did you pay attention to the stories in class? Not, can you randomly Google a thing about Greek mythology? So beyond that, I think it went pretty well. I think most of you guys seem to do pretty well on it. If you did not get a perfect score, you can redo it. And I wrote on there what you did wrong. For a lot of you, it was just following directions, was apparently not your strength. And so that'll be the thing that you want to go back there and fix. All right. This coming one will again be the e-learning and stuff like that. Jermaine, you're still over there, right? Until 2:05. You have to keep standing. Yeah, you have to keep standing the whole time. It's called, yeah, it's like torture. It's the whole trying to make you get the work done before you come here. Once I have to torture you, then that's where the torture thing comes in. All right. Then back to you guys from here. For those of you who are at home, who were here before and didn't get a chance to see all the posters all around the room, I have now built a page on Canvas for you to see all the posters. For those of you who are all virtually, here is how you get to that page. Those of you who are all Zoomily, here is how you get to the page. Those of you who are here and live right now, you get to look around as I talk about the posters. But come Wednesday, you're not going to get to see the posters unless you have really long eyeballs. So here's how you get to finding the information. If you go to Canvas page, find the thing that says Myth page and go clicky on Myth page. You can find it there, over there. Every day that we're doing mythology, I will put a link to the Myth page to help you out. Brings you to this page, which is going to have all of our mythology stuff for you. It'll have the files. So if you lose blue sheet or white sheet and you want to have access to see them, they're right there. Blue sheet, and then it has the white sheet. It has all the information. If you want to see the actual posters around the room, there is a link that says click here for posters. It is going to take you to my website. I've not been using it much this year just because Canvas was easier on you guys, but I have my own website called MrBroviak.com. It takes you to MrBroviak.com. It was easier to program it all on there than on Canvas because Canvas sometimes has issues with files like this, but it has pictures of my room. And so you can click on any of those pictures and it brings up a bigger version of it. So you can see all the things that are around the room. It even has each individual poster. So if you're trying to get a really up-closey look, you can do all the posters that are there, like the one on the front of my podium I referred to, the ones that are on the walls that you see. You can find all of that stuff that's going to be on there. The idea being is that when it comes time for like a quiz, or for those of you who are at home and I keep referring to a poster, and you're like, I want to see the poster. You can see the poster. You just got to go clicky, and it's all going to be on there. And then hopefully that helps you out a wee bit from there. All right. plays. Going to a place called MrBroviCast.com. I just bought it and I built it. I taught myself web programming. All right. And then there, Yeezys. Weebly.com is the place where you can go there and you can build your own website. And so I use that to build my own website, and I bought MrBroviCast.com. There you go. All right, so now we're good to go. Let's do reviewy information to help you out for this one. So here is, as you guys find out you have things in wrong spot, I'm going to have you move them to correct spot. Also, I know we got partway through here. We got down to Mercurial, maybe? I'm not sure how far we got. You guys will find out in a second. We'll rewind on the off chance some of you may not have been paying attention last week. We're going to try our best to try and help you out so you get a chance to rewrite things down. Tristan, you're alive, I think. Let's find out if Tristan's alive. And Tristan is alive. What a happy day. All right. Here, one living Tristan. And we'll rewind a little bit with our stories. And to there. All right. Jermaine, did you need to borrow one from me? Yeah, bring me a shoe. If you want a pen or a pencil. You're welcome. So back to here. There we go. For those of you who were here before, as we go through each one, it's the same thing as before. You're just going to be writing down your 4 categories: gods, places, things, other stuff. What category did we put chaos into? All of them. Nicely done. Now, for space reasons, I only put mine into gods and other stuff, but chaos can go into all 4 of the different categories. Because what was chaos? Nothing. Nothingness, ball of throat. To make it easier to picture, how do you picture a ball of nothing?
Air. Chocolate pudding.
There you go. The chocolate pudding, which is like nothing, but has slightly more calories. There you go.
What would be other fucking things? What would be the place?
Well, because chaos creates Mother Earth, and if Mother Earth is all the places, so if chaos creates the Earth, and the Earth is where all the places are, then that's why I said you can put it in the places too. That's not where I had put it, but I had a kid make that argument, and I was like, that's fine with me. I'm like, that's a perfectly logical argument. I'll roll with you on that one. So that was more me trying to be nice to a kid, and that made sense to me. Chronos. Where do we put Chronos?
Places. No.
In a spot.
I did like how you came across with confidence on that one, but you were not backing Celia down. She felt really strong on that one. And so, yes, Chronos goes into the God category. Again, he is over here above where Emlyn is. He is the guy wearing the adorable cheerleading miniskirt. Those of you at home, if you would like to see what it looks like to see a grown man wearing a cheerleading miniskirt while golfing, that is where those posters come in to try and help you out. Ooh, what is the correct spelling of Chronos? No.
There's many different ways.
Correct. It's a trick question. There is no correct spelling of Chronos. However you spell it, as long as it looks like Chronos, is the correct spelling of Chronos. Whether you start with a C or a K, or you throw in an H, or you use an U, or they're all correct. As long as it comes out looking somewhat like Chronos, then you should be good. And eventually we'll get to the story about Chronos eating babies and killing fathers and stuff like that. But we get to keep that into the future. Killing babies is what excited you? That was like all of a sudden, that's what woke you up? You're like, we're killing babies. I'm in. Probably some discussions we should have, Graham. Yes, please.
M-Y-R-I-D.
And then Hades. Where does Hades go?
Gods and places.
Well, now that was confidence. Nicely is correct. Hades, both the god and the place, although I just put him in the god to start off with, but you can put Hades in both of them. Again, over here above where Emlyn is, Hades is our dark, depressed fella with the black fingernails and looking all cool and gothy over there, slightly on the emo side. And then what does he name the place where he lives? Because again, not very creative. Was Hades evil?
Yes.
No. What Hades was antisocial and didn't like talking to people. But Hades was not evil. He never wanted to kill anybody. He just wanted you to leave him alone and not bother him. But he himself was not a mean person. But he also not a very creative person either. So they said, what are you going to name the place where you live? And he was like, Hades. That's where it becomes the issue. There was a nickname for the place where he lived, which would be, there you go. And that's where underworld comes in as our place food. Where was the underworld located? Nicely done. Because again, humans were not very creative either. So the underworld was located under the world, which was a pretty simple thing. What was humans' worry would happen if you said Hades' name? Close. There you go. That he would appear, that you could summon him like an NPC in a video game, and he would appear in front of you and then drag you back down to the underworld. And so that was the worry came in, why they always had to give him a nickname, because they were afraid to use his name for fear of him showing up and coming after you. Yes. Well, good question. He is antisocial, and he wouldn't drag you down to hang out with him. He would drag you down as like a punishment for making him come up there. It's like when your parents yell, "Don't make me come in there!" And then you make them come in there, and they start yelling at you. And you're like, "I didn't think you wanted to come in here." Same thing. So that's basically what his was. He did not want to come up, but once you made him come up, he was coming back home with somebody. Whether it was the dead person or you, however you want to look at it, that was more of his grubby version on there. Jerry L. Yes, as soon as bears can learn to talk. Jerry L.
I was gonna say, if you summon him during a war, would he take you and your whole squad, or just you?
Sounds like someone has some experimenting to do. You go out there, you start a war, and then just start running around yelling at Hades, and you write me a letter and let me know what happens. There you go. And that's how you want to start the student revolution. More power to you. Well, I wish you luck. I mean, he'll show up to me like, Mr. Broviak, we're going to high five each other because he and I are old friends. Yes.
So did anybody ever like try to say his name?
Sometimes. We'll probably get to some of those stories too. So we got to Hades, we did the underworld, we covered him and his issue. Titans! Where does Titans go? Well done. And this is where a lot of kids got all drunk. Titans and gods are the same thing, just like people and humans are the same thing. And so all of these big posters you see, Titans, all the little posters you see, Titans, they're all different forms of the same thing, which are all going to be these different gods. Even when we get to the battle coming up called Titans versus Olympians, they're all these same things. In Greek mythology, because this came up earlier too, in Greek mythology, there's no such thing as a goddess. When we start talking about Hera, Hera is not a goddess, Hera is a god. Because just like I don't say Graham is a human, but Kate is a humaness, they're just both called humans. It was the same thing in Greek mythology. God was just sort of their race of things. They're just all gods regardless of gender. Evelyn? No, that if you're thinking of from the Hercules movie, and so from the Hercules cartoon, they're big and evil. In Greek mythology, they're just like everything else. There are going to be monsters who are those, but they're not Titans. There's a different thing. It's just in the movie, they just took the name Titans and slapped it on another thing because the name in Greek mythology is really long, the Hecatonachires, and Disney was like, kids can't pronounce that. They're like, well, kids are dumb enough. They can do Titans. They're like, yes, they can. They just went ahead and took the name Titans and slapped them on a different thing. So we will get to those, and they do exist, and they're big, horrifying, ugly things, but that's a different story. Jerry,
If you make the green layer wall protecting themselves from the gods that they call Titans?
No, that would just be the Attack on Titan, which is the anime from Japan, which is a different thing. But that also connects to Greek mythology because that's where the idea of Titan comes from. Nice reference, though. Mercurial. Did we get to Mercurial with you guys?
No.
Then let's find out. Gods, places, things. Cassiopeia yelling at him is correct. Other stuff. And so Mercurials are, because I talked about the planets with you guys, because that's our whole introduction to Roman mythology. And the fact that on the little handouty thing, you've got the Greek names and then also the Roman names on there. And so Mercurial connects to Hermes, the guy that's right over there. And so that's where his Roman name comes in. On the poster that's over here, they have all the Greek names and the Roman names right next to them. They're both referring to the same person. It's just English and Spanish, or Greek and then Roman, two different cultures, same area referring to the same thing. Mercurial is just a word that means to change direction or change speed quickly, which we're going to end up talking about more on Wednesday because it pops up in the thing we're going to do Mercurial. And now we get to Olympians.
No.
Let's find out then.
You're talking about it, but
What
then
do
we
you
didn't
say?
get
We
to
get
that
to-
subject.
Uh-oh.
We didn't get to the subject, but
All
then
right.
we were just speaking.
Just kidding. All right. So let's go with gods, places, things, other stuff. Just keep your hand up for all of them. Oh. Okay. And Olympians go in gods. And so Olympians are a type of Titan. So we're going to find out that any of the Titans that live on a place called Mount Olympus are going to be called Olympians. Just like we have students at Fisher's Junior High and we have heroes. If you have me as an English teacher and Melling as a science teacher, and then Randall as a social studies teacher, you are called a hero. Even though you're the same race as the Globetrotters and Stars and the 8th graders, but you are a hero if you're on our team. Same thing in mythology. You have all of these Titans, but then you have 12 of them who lived in this special building and got to call themselves the Olympians. They were basically the ruling class of all of Greek mythology. They were the ones who got to make all the big choices and stuff like that. And so they're the same thing as all the other gods. They just get to have a special name. Cheerio.
When you call them Olympians and other stuff, the ones aren't those just titles, not an actual name?
If you want to look at it, I mean, Olympians are a type of god, and then the Titans are the same thing as a god. So again, if you want to put it in a different spot, if that works for you, as long as you're writing it down somewhere, then you're good to go. He says, looking at the kid who doesn't have the notebook paper out as he's trying not to charge him more points. Ooh. Delicious. And so that's where the whole Olympians thing comes in. It just means all. By the way, in here, these big posters, and for those of you who see the big postery things, these are all the Olympians. There's 6 on that side, and then over here, 6 on the. Although if you're sitting over here, there's one hidden behind my screen. Aries. So Aries, and then it goes that way. There's 6 there. Those are the 12 Olympians. These small posters, some of them are also big posters, like Athena's right here, and then Athena's right there. Apollo's right there, and Apollo's right there. So some of them double up, some don't. Hades is over here on the small posters. He's not on the big posters. Hestia is on a small poster, not on the big posters. And so I have more of the small posters that cover just the Titans in general. But then these 12 are the big leaders, the Mac Daddies and the Daddy Macs. So Leah, they are, and Poseidon. There are 3 brothers. And Hera is their sister. And Demeter is their sister.
What a good family.
He had kids with all 3 of his sisters. They were very, hey, someone had to form Alabama. And so they all get to work together. And so that's how it sort of goes from there. So yeah, there's a lot of friendliness. Next up, let's go Atlas. And Atlas goes into gods. Places. You're still not yelling at me. Raise your hand when we get to it, kids who paid no attention last week and just like yelling at me. So let's try gods, places, things, other stuff. It's actually a god and a thing. And the thing is named after the god. And there's every chance some of you are actually familiar with the god. The Atlas, the god, is this one who's usually seen holding the planet on his back. If you've ever seen like a weightlifting place or something like that, it's this big, strong, buff guy holding like the entire globe onto his back as he's sitting there being all flexy. That's Atlas, which is connected to the book because it's not just a book. You know what an atlas is a book of? A book of maps of the earth. And so that's actually connected to this god. They have the things that go in common. So that would be the same thing from there. Max, your answer is 205. It won't be until 205. Unless your question is what time am I taking a kid's AirPod for wearing it during class, then that's 1:58. 1:58 when I take a kid's AirPod. That's a whole different thing.
In 1 minute?
Oh, I guess I was wrong. I can't tell time.
Now it's 1
Jerry L.
I was supposed to pay for 5 minutes, or is that?
He lives in the ocean.
I know, but.
Atlantis is what you're thinking of. Yeah. And so different one. Yeah. Atlas and Atlantis are not connected at all. There's also going to be a girl who the name was not Atlantis, Atlanteus. Like they threw like one extra letter and went from a place to a girl's name. And it gets real confusing. That's why you guys get to use your handouts and stories and all of that whenever we get to these things, because I know it's confusing. Styx. S-T-Y-X. So figure out, for those of you who did it, where you put Styx.
Because they're like wooden rods.
And then we're going to go with, what's that kid yelling out loud? Gods, places, things, other stuff. Styx, again, goes in two. Styx is a god and a place. We'll use Emlyn as our first one here. Emlyn's in a good spot today. Above Emlyn, where we have Hades, this river that is right next to Hades in the poster, that river is the river Styx, S-T-Y-X. It was the river that separated the underworld from the above ground world. In Greek mythology, Styx starts off as a titan, an actual person. And then one day, Zeus grants her a wish of anything she wants. And he's like thinking she wants money or gold or jewels or a high five. And her one wish is to get turned into a river. He was like, that's kind of weird. And she was like, I just always wanted to be squishy. He's like, okay. He's like, yeah. And so he turns her into a river. The problem is, turns out Styx was also a horrible person. Mean, nasty, insulting, awful jerk. So when she becomes a river, she becomes a poisonous river. And Zeus does not realize it at first and puts her as a river into these woods. But the problem is everything that comes to this river dies. And you end up having this river going through these woods in Greece where there's this line of dead animals and people on either side of it. Because as soon as anything touched it, they died. And so people started complaining to Zeus. They're like, hey, this river keeps killing people as soon as we touch it. He was like, well, stop touching it. He was like, yeah, but tell that to that dead village over there. He was like, well, sucks to be them. So eventually Zeus is like, fine, I'll move this river of death away from this random forest. He's like, well, where can I put a river of death? Oh, wait, in the underworld, because it's full of dead people. But it turned out Styx was so poisonous, she was powerful enough to even kill dead people, which we'll get to. Oh, Mr. Broviak, they're already, I'm aware, boo-boo, that they're already dead, but we're going to get to what happens when you're a dead person and you touch it and you die again. It's sort of like a video game, like it resets you, then you respawn and stuff like that. So, yeah, so she was that awful of a person that she could kill dead people. Scythe, S-C-Y-T-H-E. Figure out where you want to put it. And gods, places, things, other stuff. Good job. It is technically a type of farming tool, which can also be used, technically anything can be used as a weapon if you work hard enough at it. But again, above where Emlyn is, the guy who's going golfing in his cheerleading outfit, the thing that he's holding in his hand up there, that is a scythe. It's also right above his name up there. For those of you who are at home and don't necessarily have access to it, Kronos is the poster I'm pointing to. Kronos is holding a scythe in his poster. It is going to be the stick that has a long curvy blade that comes off of it. So stick with long. If you've ever seen, what do you call it? Yeah. Yes, Grim Reaper. The kids who dress up as the Grim Reaper or Death at Halloween. It has like a stick with the blade coming off of it. Use it to cut down wheat. That's what they're referring to with the scythe. Kronos uses it to kill his father. But we'll get to that because it's a special scythe with extra pointy bits. And so it is actually the very first murder weapon to ever be used. And so that's a story that we get into from there. Our next one, there's no one going that you can name differ or can you spell any guts? Kronos is the one that is spelled differently the most often, but Hephaestus is oftentimes spelled in different ways too. And there, I mean, some of them aren't that hard to do. Like Apollo is sometimes with one L, sometimes with two L's. Dionysus will get spelled in different ways. It depends on how hard the name is to spell, but there's multiple ones that can be spelled in different ways. Pretty much, especially those of you who struggle with spelling, I'm sure you're going to be real creative with how you come up with your spelling of the names, and that's fine with me too. Our next one, Gaia, G-A-E-A, pronounced Gaia. So figure out where you want to put Gaia. We'll go with gods, places, things, other stuff, and Gaia goes into God and place. Gaia was Mother Earth in this. Gaia was, you could talk to Gaia. We're going to get to stories where you get to have conversations with Gaia and have both the gods and humans could talk to her. And she was a place. You would actually, like the earth that you are standing on right now, that was considered Mother Earth. So Gaia, the earth, was both a god and a place. If you look on family tree thing, Gaia was actually one of the very first ones. She was the one when chaos split to form the first two gods. She was one of those first two gods that was formed, which connects to Uranus. So in this one, I'm fully aware that you guys are going to pronounce it the 7th grade way as opposed to the Greek mythology way. In Greek mythology, it was pronounced Uranus. In 7th grade mythology, is pronounced as, good job. So I'm fully aware. Now, to make it even better for those of you who are starting to giggle, oh, don't worry, your giggling is going to get even better here in a second. Because Uranus, like Gaia, was a god and a place. Gaia and Uranus were married. They were the very first couple to be existence in Greek mythology. Here's where your extra giggle comes in. Mr. Broviak, are you saying that Gaia and Uranus were married? Yes. Can I pronounce their names as Gaia and Uranus? And the answer is yes. I'm fully aware that 7th graders are going to pronounce the names as Gaia and Uranus and then giggle almost every time that you do it. But being that I'm going to do the Greek mythology version, I will keep saying Gaia and Uranus, and you're just going to translate it in your head into Gaia and Uranus. There you go. Good job, kidding. And so Uranus in Greek mythology was Father Sky. You could again have a conversation with him, and it was a location you would go to. So Uranus was this thing that was up in the sky. You would talk to him. We're going to get into a conversation. He is able to be killed and attacked and talk and all kinds of fun stuff like that. Speaking of killing children, let's take our break there. So we're going to take about a 3-minute break. If you're let's see, I'm going to pause this so we don't pause the people staring at each other. Resume, and we're back. All right, let's go to our next one, which should be Nike. Nike. Excuse me. Let's figure out where you're putting it without yelling at me as much. To go into gods, places, things, other stuff. Nike is a god. In mythology, nowadays, you're right, Nike is a reference to a shoe, but in Greek mythology, Nike most definitely was just a god. I don't know. Why do I have to keep yelling at kids who yell at me? So with this one, wait a moment, children. So Nike, I have to give you a wee bit of a backstory before I get the chance to yell at me. In Greek mythology, there were 2 gods of war. The one over here, which is Ares, who is a god of war, and then also Athena, the one who's over here, is a god of war, and pointing to giant brown poster that's over here. And so on that poster, it looks a little confusing because it makes her look like a midget and she's fighting a giant horse, but it's really just a weird artist rendition. She was normal Titan size, and that was a normal horse size. But I'm thinking she's far away and the horse is up close. They're trying to show a perspective thing. But anyway, the way that the 2 Greek gods of war worked, Ares was the god of, I don't care how I win as long as I kill you in some kind of way. So he's the one, for those of you who watch Cobra Kai, the Cobra Kai dojo would definitely be praying to Ares. the whole idea, I'm going to throw dirt into your face and then punch you in the jimmy when you're on the ground, like jump on your head and laugh at you. That would be Ares. Athena was the god of war where you wanted to have a fair fight. So that's the one where you want to make sure that you are equal in some way, that you shake hands before you go into a fight. So those are the two separate gods of war. They can have two different ones. Athena had a best friend by the name of Nike, Nike. Nike was one of only 4 gods in Greek mythology who had wings. Like an angel has wings, she had actual wings coming out of her back. I'm still talking, so give me a moment. So Nike, only winged god that was out there. And yes, she was a girl. And so Nike was the god of victory in Greek mythology. You would pray to Nike if you wanted to win at something, whether it was war, whether it was a race, whether it was a chess championship, whatever, you would pray to Nike if you wanted to have a victory. So Nike and Athena would hang out all the time. As in, if you wanted to have a legit war with somebody and win, you would pray to Athena and you would pray to Nike. Fast forward thousands of years, so we get to the 1960s, and a shoe company comes out with a brand new style of sports shoe, where they say, if you wear our sports shoe, you are going to dominate the competition and you are going to win at everything you do. To get across the idea that wearing their shoe means that you are going to win all the time, they named their shoe brand God of Victory Shoes, which is why they called them Nike, because Nike was the god of victory. Now, they went on to become one of the most successful shoe companies ever, but back in the day, it just came from the fact that if you wear our shoes, you will win at sports. On top of that, the Nike symbol. What is the Nike symbol?
A swoosh.
That swoosh connects back to Greek mythology, because Nike was the only god to have wings. They created that swoosh. It is supposed to look like a wing as it goes through the air. That is supposed to be the wing as it comes forward and then pushes you forward. And that is supposed to be the wing's motion going through and then sweeping back. And that's where that swoosh just came in. And so that's why you see you have those little swooshes on the shoes. Those connect to Nike, the god, who had wings, who would take you to victory. And yes, Ethan, I'm glad I just explained the question that you had.
Wait, so they stole it?
They didn't steal it. They just named it after that. When they were trying to name their company, they figured the best way to name it was name it after the god of victory. At the time, people back then, they knew Nike as the god of victory, not Nike, the shoe company. And they thought it was weird that this company, like, really? You named your shoe company after the god of victory? Like, that's a bold move. They're like, we're really good. And like, you're never going to last. Then Nike was like, hold my shoes. And then they went off to become like one of the biggest ones ever. Cheerio. We will eventually. These are just my introductory stories. I've not got into the real stories yet. Blaze.
What if like there was a war and both the different sides prayed to Nike?
Well, what happens nowadays when we have a football game and both quarterbacks pray to God? Yeah, blow your mind on that one.
Pressure.
Next up, Trident. So let's go to that one. Figure out where you put Trident. And
And you play Minecraft and Olympus.
gods, places, things, other stuff, and Trident should go into your things. It is an object that you can touch. Trident was the weapon used by Poseidon, god of the oceans. This is Poseidon here, the thing he holds in his hand, Trident. Pretty much every poster, he is going to be the one that is over here, right above where Emmeline is. That one's a little bit harder to see with his Trident. He's also the one sitting down here, thing in his hand, Trident. The Trident is the stick that has the 3 forks covered, or the 3 prongs coming off. It looks like he's holding a little forky thing. That's the Trident. Basically means tri, meaning 3, dent, meaning to put a hole in things. And so Trident, meaning to put 3 holes in things. Now, for those of you like, Mr. Broviak, I thought it was from Little Mermaid and SpongeBob. Close. And kid who keeps yelling out and losing his points. The one from SpongeBob and from Little Mermaid, that's Triton, Triton. Triton is Poseidon's son. So that god has a son named Triton. And then he is often popped up in other stories in mythology. So like in Little Mermaid, technically Little Mermaid is Poseidon's granddaughter. I mean, given it's a make-believe story into a make-believe story, but it's the same thing. In SpongeBob, that Triton that shows up would be his son also. So instead of Poseidon, they just use his son Triton. Kate? I'm pretty sure it should be, if I go back and look at it, it should be Triton. And then they might have called him Trident in there, but he has a son named Triton, which would make a lot more sense. I mean, maybe they called him Trident also, which would be weird, but it is Disney. And Disney doesn't do a whole lot with facts. So go Disney on that one. Yeah, ignoring you, it's okay. And then, oh yeah, that's also good job. And then sacrifices. Let's go with sacrifices, gods, places, things, other stuff. That's where I'd put it too. The sacrifices I would put into other stuff. Essentially, the reason I bring up sacrifices is that it pops up in Greek mythology. You do have to sacrifice things. But the misconception is the whole sacrificing people thing, like the stabbing and the pulling out the heart and the thump, 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 thump. That was not the Greek mythology culture. That was down in Central America, South America, where they did the whole killing of people. In Greek mythology, when you sacrificed, you did not sacrifice people. You only sacrificed food, and that was it. You could sacrifice an animal on the way to its becoming food, but if you were trying to pray to Nike to help you win a battle, you wouldn't like pick up a baby and like, Nike, help me win, and then stab the baby. Because they'd be like, no, what are you doing, bad human? What you would do is you would sacrifice a bowl of honeycomb. You'd be like, Nike, here's my honeycomb. I'm a honeycomb kid. Shaka, shaka, shaka. And you'd shake your bowl of honeycomb, and then you'd like throw it out into the yard. And that was how you would sacrifice to the gods. So you would give up some food and you give it to the god. For those of you who did the book series with the lightning thief, Percy Jackson. In that one, in the Percy Jackson books and in the Percy Jackson movies, whenever they're at Camp Half-Blood, they always start a meal by throwing food into the fire. That was their connection to Greek mythology and the sacrificing. And the fact that they sort of did the same thing in the books and the movies, they sacrificed by just throwing food into the fire at the start of every single meal. Same idea. Let's go to Cyclops. Figure out where you put that one. And I know I'm ignoring you because I try to get through things. Gods, places, things, other stuff. Cyclops I could see going in two spots. I put Cyclops in other stuff, but you could absolutely put Cyclops in gods. Cyclops were actually the older brothers of the Titans. So technically they are a type of god, but I put them in other stuff because people sort of consider them monsters. Do you guys know what a Cyclops looks like? Yeah. So they're the ones that have the one giant eye in the middle of their forehead that were. And so in Greek mythology, there are 3 Cyclops that exist, and only 3. And they were 3 brothers who lived together, and they were the older siblings of all of these Titans. They were like their older brothers who existed before they did. In mythology, I always thought as a kid, I thought the word Cyclops meant one-eyed. That's not what it means. As I've gotten older and learned English, like that, this beginning of it, that CYCL, that's the same root word from bicycle, motorcycle, unicycle. And so, you guys know what CYCL means? Yes. No, that's unicycle. Uni
Doesn't mean
one.
bad.
No. You also have life cycle, would be the same thing. There you go. Cycle just means wheel or circle. So you have like a unicycle means 1 wheel. Bicycle means 2 wheels. Tricycle means 3 wheels. Motorcycle means wheels with motor. And so their name, the CYCL, meant wheel. You get the other half of it, the second half of their name, that OPS, not ops as in like black ops and special ops for those of you who play Call of Duty, but ops as in optometrist. You guys know what an optometrist does? Eye doctor. Cyclops, their name meant wheel eye. In Greek, I thought it looked like someone randomly walked in with a giant car tire and just went whack in the middle of their forehead and then just left it there. So they called them the giant wheel-eyed creatures. Cyclops just meant wheel in middle of eye, or a wheel for an eye. The Cyclops comes in. Carry on.
One of the brothers like a really old man, like one that forged all the weapons of the gods.
We're going to get to that. All three of them did. They actually work as a team.
But yeah, I remember I watched the movie once about it.
That'd be their reference to Greek mythology. All three of them worked together and they trained one of the gods, which we'll get to. They connect them that way too. Olympus. Figure out where you put that one. And we go with gods, places, things, other stuff. Good job. Olympus, itchy nose, is a place. Ooh. What do you call a god who lives on Olympus?
Olympia.
Nicely done. That's where the Olympians come in. So Olympus was just this palace that was on top of a mountain called Mount Olympus. By the way, there is an actual Mount Olympus in Greece. When you go there, there is an actual mountain, and you go by, and they'll go, that mountain right there is called Mountain Olympus or Mount Olympus. Is there a castle at the top? There is not. There's just a big top mountain up there. It'd be cool if there was, but there's nothing special up there. And so that was the spot that was thought, and we're going to get to that story coming up next week about how this building gets created that where all the gods live and hang out. Prometheus. Figure out where we're going to put Prometheus. Gods, places, things, other stuff. And Prometheus goes in gods. Prometheus was the god of geniuses. He had a brother named Epimetheus, who was the god of idiots. And they hung out together all the time. Mr. Prometheus, they're actually a god of idiots. Yes. Not only was he the god of idiots, he was an idiot. And so we're going to get into the stories of him. Prometheus had the same issue that Aesop did, because Aesop was a teacher. Prometheus was a teacher in Greek mythology. What happens to Aesop? Died teaching. What's going to happen to Prometheus? So apparently we're going to get into a lot of stories about teachers who die. And so Prometheus, not only, although he is a god, so he doesn't die right away, but he gets tortured for 1,000 years because he can't die. He has this big, slow, horrible death that goes into it. But it's another fun story we'll get into. Now, his brother, god of idiots, does not get tortured to death. Instead, he gets a hot wife. Is the lesson that it's better to be dumb than smart? Yeah, in Greek mythology, that's kind of where they went with it. The idiot got all the good stuff, and the smart one got killed. Just like real Iris. Let's go with gods, places, things, other stuff. Goes in two categories. Iris is the thing in your eyeball, which is named after a god. There is the god of colors named Iris. She was the rainbow god. So when they named your body part, which has all these colors to it, the fact that sometimes your eye color is brown or green or blue or purple, they named that after the god of rainbows and colors. So in mythology, the god, by the way, Ireland, that country, connects back to this. Name that because that is where you have all of these beautiful colors that come from it, which connects back to Greek mythology and the god of rainbows. And so Ireland is named from Iris, the god of rainbows from Greek mythology. It traveled all the way up to there. And our last one before we get to our next fun thing, Clotho. And gods, places, things, other stuff. Clotho, our last god. Clotho and two sisters. She was a girl, and she had a sister named Anchises and a sister named Atropo. If you have seen either the Hercules cartoon or the Lightning Thief movies, they're in there. In the Hercules cartoon, they are these three sisters who live up in a cave, and they share an eyeball that they pop out like these old, creepy old ladies. They have one eyeball they share between the three of them. And then one of them tries to kill Hercules by cutting his string with scissors. And like this goes, and his That is Clotho who tries to do that. In the Lightning Thief movie, they are cab drivers, and the three of them are driving a cab all over the place while they sit in the back, like Percy Jackson and what's his face are all in the back screaming as they drive around like sharing an eyeball. In Greek mythology, they don't share an eyeball. That was kind of weird. In Greek mythology, they are blind for the most part, but the three sisters controlled how long all humans live. There is a string called the string of life, and Clotho was the creator of the string of life. There's another one called Atropos, who was the one who would cut the string. And so they're the ones who create humans and how long you're going to live, which is the story we have coming up. Do not lose this handouty thing, because this is what you're going to be able to reference come Friday on your e-learning quizzy thing. So wherever you have it, keep it somewhere safe. Now we're jumping to blue sheet. On blue sheet, we're going to this top area sectiony thing. It's in the top left where it has the word God thing. We're going to be going up to that area. Give you a moment to get that out. By the way, for those of you who have blue sheet, hopefully you see right above where it says review guide, it says name. Hopefully you have written name there, because I keep finding these on my floor. And when you do that, I charge you points for new one. Way to show off, smart kid. Nicely done. So hopefully, by the way, first and last, if you only write your first name, I still throw it away, because I'm assuming you're just confused and don't know who you are. Same thing with you children at home. Make sure you've done the same thing and filled in your name on there and on the white sheet. It'll save you those points of me having to torture you and filling them in from there. Of your house, then it's just out of luck on that. Yes, that definitely sounds like a thing that would happen. So same screen, I just sort of zoomed in. So zooming in the part of the jovial serial volcano, same thing. Here's what I'm gonna have you guys do. Home children, you get to play this next game also. We're gonna see if you can figure out what god this word comes from. Before, you had to sort of figure out what category things went into, changing it a little bit. The word jovial comes from a Greek god's Roman name. So I'm going to see if you can figure out what Greek god. Now, this is where that white piece of paper comes in. Mostly not the family tree side, but the whole bunch of writing side. Living kids, you have a slightly easier time because the posters can also help you. So I'm looking for the Greek god that we get jovial from. Jeriel, why do you say Zeus? I'm with you. Why God of Thunder have anything to do with this? It doesn't say it on the sheet. It says not Jolt, Jove. Interesting, but you are correct. It does connect to Zeus, because Zeus's Roman name was Jove, Jove. He also had the name Jupiter. They just don't use that one quite as much. Jove was his more common Roman name, Jove. In Greek mythology, the jovial thing, and you guys know what jovial means?
A word.
It does mean a word, Jermaine. Correct, so don't make mistakes. Well, that was a poor choice. Well, use your pencil then. Yeah, that's why you have to use my pencil. It's jank. That's why I don't recommend doing that. That's why you should always bring your own. So jovial, by the way, that's the problem with me wearing my mask. You can't see how jovial I am when I get to torture kids. Wow, that scared me how quick you answered that one, but yes. So jovial means happy. And so it's connected to Zeus because they thought anybody who was the king of all the gods had to be a pretty happy person. It's ironic because Zeus is our least happy god that we're going to get into all these stories of. Zeus spends his time being really grumpy and mean and attacking people and doing awful things to them. And at no point in our stories does he come across as a happy person. So technically, even though we get the word jovial from him, he is not jovial. The other part is just you don't have to put the on top of the world. As long as you know it means happy, then you're good. It was just the idea. The reason it was connected to him is they thought if you act really happy, people would say, "Oh, you must be on top of the world." And they're like, "That's very Jove-like of you, or very Zeus-like of you." And eventually, it just became very jovial of you. Now, but Mr. Broviak, I thought you said Zeus was friendly. Zeus was friendly, but he was not happy. He made a lot of friends, and there were a lot of side friend babies, but that's not the same thing as him being happy. Mr. Broviak, I'm getting real creeped out. Me too. And we haven't even gotten to the good stories yet, so you'll just have to wait till we find out what happens from there. Yes? Not necessarily. I mean, Hades is also grumpy. That's probably not your best comparison. But when we get into, I mean, yeah, no, I'd say Zeus is probably on par with Hades. Hades doesn't try to pretend that he's happy. Zeus tries to pretend he's happy and then just goes around killing people. All right. Now, did I buy you guys time to find our next one? Cereal. Those of you at home, if you can figure out where it's from. Max, did you figure out where cereal comes from?
Demeter, the god Demeter.
What is Demeter's Roman name?
Ceres.
Yes, correct. Cereal comes from Demeter, whose Roman name was Ceres. She's the one over here in brown who's throwing a gang sign while holding all the things from there. For those of you who can see the posters. She's also the one over here above Jermaine who's making regrets for not having an eraser. That is her sitting in that chair. She's also the one over here in yellow who's yelling at Hades. That would be Demeter, whose Roman name was Ceres, C-E-R-E-S. Mr. Broviak, are you serious? I didn't think so either, but I had to say it. Does it mean gangster? Yes. Everyone knows that Ceres is Roman for gangster. And actually, back in the day, the very first gangsters were called Ceres. No, that's called made up. I don't know why you said the gangster thing. I was just rolling with it. Nor do I know why she's throwing a gang sign up there. It just looks kind of weird. It's right there. She's throwing her gang sign. Look, she's like, "What up? West side?" I'm not really sure or something like that. I don't know what gang signs they threw. Just because she's lily white like that, looks like a full moon. I mean, she knows how to throw. I don't know. I've got nothing on that one. And so that's her. There is more that goes into it, but Hank, are you already moving on to the next one? You can't go on to the next one. I have more story to get to. We just have to wait because I'm afraid he's going to start talking in a moment. We're going to stop here because I don't know when Mr. Butts is going to interrupt me and start babbling. So we're going to stop here. Wednesday, we're going to go through. Did you just applaud me being done? Yeah, make me cry. That's what all of a sudden you guys applaud. So Wednesday, we'll see you guys back here in person. Those of you who are going to be dead on Wednesday, don't lose papers because you're going to, once again, we're going to be filling things in and helping you guys out come thing for Friday. I will tell you now, your Friday quiz is all of like 8 questions, and they're just going to connect to these things that we're filling in. So as long as you've been paying attention and writing them down, you should be good.
The definition for cereal is nom nom nom.
Absolutely. Yes, Aaliyah.
So we're supposed to gangster, right?
Yes. Are you giving? No, I think your face froze. No. Did your face freeze? Wait. No, your face did not freeze. No, it did not freeze. You're just giving me giant eyes the entire time. I thought your face froze on giant eyes, but no, that's just you staring at me. All right, I was just making sure on that one. All right, home children, I'm going to send you away so we can do it.
Bye, Mr. Broviak.